Well, good afternoon. You're watching the Midday News on Rajya Sabha TV. I'm Aishwarya with you. Let us start the Midday News with the top headlines. Ahead of budget session, Rajya Sabha Chairman Venkaiah Naidu calls meeting of floor leaders on 31st of January. All party meet is slated a day before for smooth functioning of Parliament. Centre to sign accord with Bodo militant group NDFB in a short while. Signing of tripartite agreement in presence of Home Minister Amit Shah and Assam government. Accord will give political and economic benefits to the Bodos. Government to sell 100% stake in national carrier Air India. Set 17th of March as deadline for buyers to submit initial expressions of interest. In his first Mann Ki Baat radio address of the year, Prime Minister Modi appeals to people using violence to settle issues to return to mainstream. Asserts that insurgency in the northeast reduced through peaceful dialogue. And in China, coronavirus deaths touch 81. More than 2,700 people affected. No Indian affected by the outbreak. Government closely monitoring the situation. The top story this afternoon, ahead of budget session of Parliament, Rajya Sabha Chairman M. Venkaiah Naidu has called the all floor leaders of Rajya Sabha for a meeting on 31st of January. An all-party meeting has also been convened by Parliamentary Affairs Minister Prahlad Joshi on 30th of January. And BJP Parliamentary Executive and National Democratic Alliance meeting will be held at Parliament on 31st of January. Parliamentary Affairs Minister held a meeting today of secretaries of various ministries and departments today regarding the preparation of legislative business during the ensuing budget session of Parliament. All right, so various meetings are being scheduled ahead of a budget session of Parliament that starts on 31st of January this year. And ahead of the session, Rajya Sabha Chairman M. Venkaiah Naidu has called the meeting of all the floor leaders of Rajya Sabha. And on the same day, the BJP Parliamentary Executive and the NDA meeting will also be held. And a day before, that is on 30th of January, an all-party meeting has been convened by Parliamentary Affairs Minister Prahlad Joshi. Let's get all the updates. Kriti Mishra, our colleague, is now joining us for more details. Kriti, what more details you can give us? Because the budget session of Parliament is going to commence on 31st of January and it will conclude on 3rd of April. There is a recess in between as well. And ahead of that, these meetings are being called. What more can you tell us?
Well, absolutely, Aishwarya. Important meetings have been convened ahead of the budget session, both by the chairman of the Rajya Sabha as well as by the government. Now, remember, Chairman Rajya Sabha has been holding parleys with leaders across political spectrum to ensure that the session turns out to be productive one, and rightly so. You may recall, Aishwarya, that the year 2019 ended on a high note for the Rajya Sabha, marking a shift or a break from the preceding disruptive years. So, as far as the legislative business was concerned, the upper house passed 52 bills in 65 sittings, which turns out to be an output of 0.80% or 4 bills in 5 days. It was perhaps for the first time that for the last 2 consecutive sessions, the Rajya Sabha has recorded a productivity of 100%. And talking about Lok Sabha, in fact, the last session, the Lok Sabha recorded a productivity of 116%. Now, this time around, on 31st, we'll also have the President's address, and thereafter, there would be presentation of Union budget. The opposition would try to rake up several issues and would try to up the ante against the government, but the government would strive for didactic debate and discussion on all the issues. Over to you, Aishwarya.
Right, Kriti. Thank you so much for all those updates there. And let's get you some other news now. An accord with all the factions of the banned Assam-based rebel group, National Democratic Front of Bodoland, giving political and economic provisions to the Bodos, will be signed today. Now, this tripartite agreement will be signed in the presence of Home Minister Amit Shah and Assam Chief Minister Sarbanand Sonowal in Delhi rather. The agreement will be signed by top leadership of 4 factions of the NDBF, All Bodo Student Union, Joint Secretary in the Home Ministry Satyendra Garg and Assam Chief Secretary Kumar Sanjay Krishna. Now, this will be the third Bodo Accord to be signed in the last 27 years since the violent movement for a separate Bodoland state begun. It has claimed thousands of lives and has caused the destruction of public and private properties. Eminent economist Abhijit Banerjee has said that there are some good indicators for the Indian economy in the last 2 months. Banerjee was speaking at a session at the Jaipur Literature Festival. The 58-year-old India-born American economist, however, said that we should worry about the finance sector. He further said that there has been a huge reduction in poverty in India in the last 30 years. He mentioned that poverty was 40% in 1990 and now it is less than 20%. Since the population has grown, it is an enormous reduction in the number of poor people. Dr. Banerjee, an Indian origin economist, was jointly awarded the Nobel Prize in Economic Sciences along with his French-American wife Esther Duflo and American economist Michael Kremer for their experimental approach in alleviating global poverty last year.
पिछले 2 महीने में थोड़ा सा अच्छे इंडिकेटर्स आ रहे हैं, कुछ इंडिकेटर्स अभी टर्न अराउंड हुआ है। ये कितने दिन तक चलेगा और इसके पीछे क्या हो रहा है ये मुझे पता नहीं है, क्योंकि अभी डेटा नया आ रहा है। The last 30 years have had huge reduction in poverty. Poverty was 40% in 1990 and now it's closer to less than 20%. Poverty has been reduced hugely. That's in proportions. In absolute terms, since the population has grown, that's an enormous reduction in the number of poor people. So, there's no question that that's been one of the great successes of the world.
And in a revised push to sell the national carrier, the government today announced plans to sell its entire stake in Air India. As per the bid document that was issued today, the government said it would sell 100% stake in the carrier, which operates both domestic and international routes. The government has set 17th of March as a deadline for potential buyers to submit their initial expressions of interest. The bid document showed that while several of Air India's subsidiaries will be excluded from the sale, the buyer will get 100% of low-cost Arm Air India Express and 50% of AISATS. AISATS is a joint venture partnership between Air India and Singapore Airport Terminal Services Limited, which provides ground and cargo handling services. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said that violence cannot be a solution to any issue and any problem can be resolved by seeking solutions and not by creating another one. He was sharing his thoughts in the 61st episode of Mann Ki Baat radio program on Sunday. Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that few days ago in Assam, 644 militants from 8 militant groups surrendered and expressed faith in peace. He added that in Tripura, more than 80 people left the path of violence last year. The Prime Minister said that those who had picked up weapons thinking that violence could be solving problems now firmly believe that only way to solve any dispute is peace and togetherness. He said that insurgency in the northeast has come down and efforts are being made to resolve issues of the region peacefully through dialogue.
देशवासियों को यह जानकर बहुत प्रसन्नता होगी कि नॉर्थ ईस्ट में इंसर्जेंसी बहुत एक मात्रा में कम हुई है और इसकी सबसे बड़ी वजह यह है इस क्षेत्र से जुड़े हर एक मुद्दे को शांति के साथ ईमानदारी से चर्चा करके सुलझाया जा रहा है। देश के किसी भी कोने में अब भी हिंसा और हथियार के बल पर समस्याओं का समाधान खोज रहे लोगों से आज इस गणतंत्र दिवस के पवित्र अवसर पर अपील करता हूं, वे वापस लौट आए, मुद्दों को शांतिपूर्ण तरीके से सुलझाने में अपनी और इस देश की क्षमताओं पर भरोसा रखें। हम 21वीं सदी में हैं, जो ज्ञान, विज्ञान और लोकतंत्र का युग है। क्या आपने किसी ऐसी जगह के बारे में सुना है जहां हिंसा से जीवन बेहतर हुआ हो? क्या आपने ऐसी किसी जगह के बारे में सुना है जहां शांति और सद्भाव जीवन के लिए मुसीबत बने हो, हिंसा किसी समस्या का समाधान नहीं करती। दुनिया की किसी भी समस्या का हल कोई दूसरी समस्या पैदा करने से नहीं, बल्कि अधिक से अधिक समाधान ढूंढकर ही हो सकता है। आइए हम सब मिलकर एक ऐसे नए भारत के निर्माण में जुट जाएं, जहां शांति हर सवाल के जवाब का आधार हो, एकजुटता हर समस्या के समाधान के प्रयास में हो और भाईचारा हर विभाजन और बंटवारे की कोशिश को नाकाम करे।
The Prime Minister in the radio program also informed that the proposed Gaganyaan mission will be a historic achievement for India in the 21st century. He praised the 4 pilots of the Indian Air Force who have been selected as astronauts for the mission.
2022 में हमारी आजादी के 75 साल पूरे होने वाले हैं और उस मौके पर हमें गगनयान मिशन के साथ एक भारतवासी को अंतरिक्ष में ले जाने के अपने संकल्प को सिद्ध करना है। गगनयान मिशन 21वीं सदी में साइंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी के क्षेत्र में भारत की एक ऐतिहासिक उपलब्धि होगा। नए भारत के लिए यह एक मील का पत्थर साबित होगा। साथियों, आपको पता ही होगा, इस मिशन में एस्ट्रोनॉट यानी अंतरिक्ष यात्री के लिए 4 उम्मीदवारों का चयन कर लिया गया है। ये चारों युवा भारतीय वायुसेना के पायलट हैं। ये होनहार युवा भारत के कौशल, प्रतिभा, क्षमता, साहस और सपनों के प्रतीक है। हमारे ये चारों मित्र अगले कुछ ही दिनों में ट्रेनिंग के लिए रूस जाने वाले हैं। मुझे विश्वास है कि यह भारत और रूस के बीच मैत्री और सहयोग का एक और सुनहरा अध्याय बनेगा। इन्हें 1 साल से अधिक समय तक प्रशिक्षण दिया जाएगा। इसके बाद देश की आशाओं और आकांक्षाओं की उड़ान को अंतरिक्ष तक ले जाने का दारोमदार इन्हीं में से किसी एक पर होगा। आज गणतंत्र दिवस के शुभ अवसर पर इन चारों युवाओं और इस मिशन से जुड़े भारत और रूस के वैज्ञानिकों एवं इंजीनियरों को मैं बधाई देता हूं।
The Prime Minister also said that the new decade of 2020 has brought a new ray of hope in the life of a Bru-Riang community. He was referring to the agreement which has ended the 25-year-old problem of a Bru refugee crisis. Prime Minister Modi also congratulated Assam government and the people of the state for successfully hosting the 3rd Khelo India Games. Prime Minister Modi said that the government has now decided to organize Khelo India University Games, and the first edition of the games will be held in Cuttack and Bhubaneswar in Odisha from 22nd of next month.
हमने खेलो इंडिया यूथ गेम्स की तर्ज पर ही हर वर्ष खेलो इंडिया यूनिवर्सिटी गेम्स भी आयोजित करने का निर्णय लिया है। साथियों, अगले महीने 22 फरवरी से 1 मार्च तक ओडिशा के कटक और भुवनेश्वर में पहले खेलो इंडिया यूनिवर्सिटी गेम्स आयोजित हो रहे हैं। इसमें भागीदारी के लिए 3000 से ज्यादा खिलाड़ी क्वालिफाई कर चुके हैं।
The Prime Minister expressed confidence that after interaction with students in Pariksha Pe Charcha, the youth is brimming with self-confidence and is ready to take on the challenges. He also appreciated the participation of people in water conservation, saying that a Jal Shakti campaign, which commenced last monsoon, is taking rapid and successful strides with public participation. The Prime Minister also mentioned about the Padma Awards, saying that these awards have now become the People's Awards. And now all the action from the Delhi Assembly elections. Campaigning for the Delhi Assembly election has intensified. Home Minister Amit Shah is scheduled to hold 2 public meetings in support of the BJP candidates in Delhi today. He will address public meetings in Rithala and in Janakpuri. BJP President JP Nadda will also address election rallies in Delhi's Narayana Vihar, Delhi Cantonment and Moti Nagar. And apart from the BJP, leaders of the Aam Aadmi Party and the Congress Party are also campaigning. Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal today held a roadshow in Bhavana, and later in the day he will also hold roadshows in Narela and in Gandhinagar. An earlier Home Minister Amit Shah on Sunday took out a roadshow in Gonda Assembly constituency in Delhi in support of the party's candidate from the area. And Delhi BJP chief Manoj Tiwari also accompanied the Home Minister and said the people of Delhi wanted a BJP government in the city and that Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal had failed to take care of public services. He appealed to the people to vote for the BJP. Big story coming in from Andhra Pradesh. The cabinet chaired by Chief Minister Y.S. Jagan Mohan Reddy has now passed a resolution to abolish the Legislative Council. The resolution will now be moved in the Assembly. The Assembly will have to adopt the resolution with the 2/3 majority for it to be sent to the centre for Parliament's approval. Meanwhile, the opposition Telugu Desam Party or the TDP has lashed out at Chief Minister Jagan Mohan Reddy for the proposal. While the YSR Congress Party has a majority of 151 out of 175 seats in the Assembly, the TDP has a majority of in the Council with 28 seats. A TDP delegation led by former Chief Minister N. Chandrababu had also earlier met Andhra Pradesh Governor over the issue on Friday. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu has said that India will not allow outside interference in its internal affairs. He said this after releasing a book, TRG An Enigma, which provides a unique insight to T.R. Gupta's life and his distinguished contribution to education in India over 5 long decades. Tilak Raj Gupta pioneered the public school movement in India by taking over the Hansraj Model School in New Delhi in 1970.
Recently, some efforts are being made outside India to comment on some laws made by Parliament and to raise some issues based on inadequate knowledge and insufficient understanding of the issues sought to be addressed by our lawmakers. Such efforts are totally uncalled for, unwarranted. Let me make it very clear. As the Vice President and also Chairman of the Upper House of India, Parliament, these comments are totally uncalled for and unwarranted. As a mature republic and democratic polity, we are capable of addressing the concerns if any of our citizens, and we need no advice or guidance in such matters from others. As a republic of 70 years of experience, we have withstood so many challenges and overcame several challenges. We are now more united than ever before, and no one should have any concern in this regard. As a nation, we are committed to the cardinal principles of ensuring justice, liberty, and equality for all of our citizens. This is a great country, even of partition on the basis of religion. We follow Sarva Dharma Samabhavana, appeasement of none and justice for all. Minorities could become president 3 times, could become Chief Justice of India number of times, could become chief ministers, could become air chief marshal, could become army chief in this great country. So others need not tell us about the so-called secularism. That is because secularism is safe and secure in India because that is part of our blood. हर एक भारतीय नागरिक का खून में है सर्व धर्म समभावना. So this others need not worry about it. First they should look inside and find out what is happening within their areas, their domain or their countries. There is an unfortunate trend of foreign bodies to interfere in the matters that are completely within the purview of India, Parliament and the Indian government. I hope they will recognize that this is unwarranted and unwelcome. I hope that they will refrain from making such statements.
The Vice President also said that building a new India is no easy task. He said that the new India requires young and vibrant young thinkers who are willing to experiment and explore various possibilities around them.
Building a new India is no easy task. The new India requires young and vibrant young thinkers who are willing to experiment and explore the various possibilities around them. The youth in new India must be solution makers. It is often said that it takes a whole village to raise a child, and therefore, along with the educators, each and every one of us must work to build a conducive environment for our youngsters to flourish in. My dear sisters and brothers, though we speak of the need to educate and skill youngsters to make them employable, I strongly believe that education is not just for employment, it is also for empowerment and enhancement.
Mumbai is all set to become a maximum city from today. Malls and eateries in the non-residential areas of Mumbai will be allowed now to stay open through the night. Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray's cabinet on Wednesday cleared a proposal to this effect. The exemption, however, will not apply to restaurants that serve alcohol, so pubs, bars and liquor shops will follow a 1:30 a.m. deadline. The Maharashtra government expects the move to generate jobs, drive tourism and boost the economy. The top international focus, the number of people killed in China by the coronavirus has risen to 81. The overall number of confirmed cases in China is 2,744, out of whom more than 300 are critically ill. Wuhan in Hubei, the source of the outbreak, is in a lockdown and several cities have imposed travel bans. More than 500,000 medical staff have joined prevention, control and treatment operations in Hubei. Chinese Premier Li Keqiang paid a visit to the coronavirus-hit Wuhan city, the first such visit by a top leader. Meanwhile, Australia today confirmed its 5th case of a new coronavirus, with the health officials saying that the case involved a 21-year-old woman who was on the last flight of a Chinese city of Wuhan to Sydney before China imposed the travel ban. Meanwhile, the Minister of External Affairs on Sunday confirmed that no Indian in China has been affected by the outbreak of coronavirus so far. The MEA added that the Indian embassy in Beijing is in touch with the Indian students studying in Wuhan and Hubei and other Indians living in different parts of China. MEA spokesperson Ravish Kumar tweeted on Sunday that External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar is closely monitoring the situation. He added that 3 helplines have been made operational at the Indian embassy in Beijing to address the concerns of Indians without any delay. And in more international news, US basketball legend Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gianna are among 9 people killed in a helicopter crash in the city of California. Bryant was traveling in a private helicopter when it came down and burst into flames. There were no survivors. Bryant, a 5-time NBA champion, is widely considered one of the greatest players in the game's history. Bryant played his entire 20-year career with the Los Angeles Lakers. He retired in April 2016. His achievements include being the 2008 NBA Most Valuable Player and 2-time NBA Finals MVP. He was also NBA scoring champion twice and also a 2-time Olympic champion. Tributes from celebrities and fellow sports stars have been pouring in, many expressing shock at his sudden death. And now let's talk about environment and climate change. Australia's bushfire crisis is likely to contribute up to 2% of the annual increase in atmospheric carbon dioxide levels. Post the forest fires, the atmospheric concentration of major greenhouse gas is expected to hit 417 parts per million in May. Australia generally contributes about 1.3% of the global annual emissions under UN greenhouse accounting rules. Concentration of more than 450 ppm is associated with average temperature rise of 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, a point at where some catastrophic effects of global warming may become irreversible. Emissions from the bushfires are considered to be climate neutral in carbon accounting, as forest regrowth absorbs a similar amount of carbon dioxide as was released while burning. While it has been observed that many burned areas never recover their pre-fire state. And with that, we wrap up this edition of Midday News. Before we go, take a look at the weather conditions in major cities of the country. Thanks so much for watching.